This started out as just a DDLC fan fiction. It was called "And I Have Seen the World of Dreams." People have asked me about, will you make this as it was just a dream ending? I'm like, no, I am not gonna do the it's a dream ending for this thing.
I wanted to just see it instead of just being like, we have to worry about Yuri. Oh no, Yuri's breaking. Oh no, Yuri's kidnapped me. I wanted to see more of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're not perfect.
We're not gonna.
Yeah.
We're not perfect writers. But
You're very close to it though.
It was definitely not a we're stopping Act 2 and working on Christmas special. It was like, you guys can go do that if you'd like.
Actually, I think that the biggest contribution we as a team gave to the Christmas special was making it canon.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
In a sense, yeah.
So recently I got a chance to interview the developers of DDLC World of Dreams. And honestly, this is a dream come true. Pun definitely intended. In case you haven't seen my 2.5 hour long video of World of Dreams, oh my god, what am I doing with my life? I love this mod, I love this story, so yeah, this is just amazing. So hope you all enjoy this video, and yeah, please subscribe! Let's just do simple introductions. Let's go from left to right. Feel free to introduce yourselves.
My name is Eric. I go for Capricorn Saint 09 here in Discord. I'm a professional musician with a degree in jazz. I'm working right here, right now as a composer and as a bassist in an Italian band.
My name is Kevin. I go by Maysun035 or Meiji in the public Discord. I am a artist and graphic designer, and I do writing as well here. Yeah, I just enjoy making content, making people smile, and sometimes making them cry because it's kind of fun to write stories like that.
My name is Jonathan. I go by Morbius Green on here. I have a degree in English, and I enjoy writing. I write a lot. You'd be surprised at how much I've written. I've got like an entire folder full of unfinished projects that are just sitting on my computer doing absolutely nothing.
What was it like working on this project?
It started out, I don't know if you know this, others do. This started out as just a DDLC fanfiction. Sitting on fanfiction.net right now. It started out, it was called "And I Have Seen the World of Dreams," and I shortened it to World of Dreams for the mod. I don't know what inspired me to make this a mod. When I started, I had no idea how coding worked. I had no idea how to add music. I basically kind of taught myself with the help from the modding Discord server. And for the most part, I did all of the writing and the coding for Act 1 on my own. I did not expect it to become as big as it did. I was just doing this for funsies. I wanted to see my work come to life. I edited some of the original backgrounds to look a lot more realistic. I did the editing for the sprites to make them look more natural. I basically did a lot of it. I didn't do the music, obviously. The demo, I did find a bunch of free music to use, but when Act 1 came out, by then we had Capri with us already, and he did a lot of music for us.
That's cool. Did you ever expect this mod to become such a long story? I know you had mentioned that you already had it as like a giant fanfic, but like as you were working on the mod and everything, did you gradually add stuff into it, or did you take stuff away?
Well, originally, I was only going to have 3 acts. As time went on and we got more and more ideas, honestly, I think some of the time we went a little overboard with some things. We have a total of around maybe 7 acts planned. That may be short. I don't know. And there's other things we have planned as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of things on the table that we're still like sorting through. Just there would be times when we would just be like, oh, this story and this idea and this idea, and we just have like a 3-hour conversation. And it's like, we gotta write that down.
How many of those ideas actually got added to the story, and how many of them have been left out?
I'm sorry, I was trying to think. I'm not entirely sure.
A lot of the ideas that we came up are like overarching story plans for characters. In the beginning, and we can talk about Yai later, but she was just supposed to be a write-off bully character, and we got rid of. And then we expanded her character and increased like where we wanted to go with her character, and we kind of added that to every single character. So that's where a large amount of our brainstorming goes, and then how those characters will interact in future acts. It's not like we want this specific event to happen. There are a couple things that we do want to happen, but mainly it's like, how do we want these characters to interact as time goes on?
How many things do you wish that you could have changed while working on like Act 1 or Act 2?
I think one of the big things, well, now I think about it, one of the things would be the Kozue turnaround. I've heard people not complaining, but saying that it seemed like she changed a little too fast. Should have dragged that out a little bit to make it seem a little more realistic. Other than that, I can't think of anything that might need to have been done differently.
What inspired you to like create the story to begin with?
What inspires me to write anything I write? I enjoy writing, and when I find something that sticks in my brain, I need to write it out. I get kind of hyper-focused when I find something new to focus on. When did I publish that story? It was in 2019, I think I published it.
Because you had mentioned that you had a bunch of stories that you kind of just have like on the back burner, so I thought like it was one of those like things you thought of and you just had it there for like years and years.
No. I kind of saw DDLC in passing on Reddit and stuff. I eventually read over the stories and stuff, and finally was like, okay, you know what? I would like to write this story. Well, actually, to be fair, World of Dreams wasn't my first fanfic of the story. I had written another one, and had started a few more before I started the World of Dreams one.
Roughly speaking, how many stories have you written before?
It's got to be over 200.
200?
Some of them
wow.
most of them are stories. Some of them are just little things where I write down facts about stories that I would like to write. And there are more that I have on like maybe my notes on my phone.
At what point did May and Capricorn end up joining your team?
Oh man, it had to have been before Act 1 was released. I don't remember when they joined the server.
You know, I joined the server when there was about 200 people there, and now there's like more than 10 times that amount. When I joined, I was just, excited, wanted to like help out, be like, oh yeah, the emotional scenes and such. And then it was in October of 2020 when Morby was like, cool, you're the second writer now. And I had like a conniption because it was like super cool and like an awesome opportunity. And then it just kind of skyrocketed and we had a great time working on it. And then Capri, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I believe was a few months after that. It was a very short window before we all started working together.
I joined the Discord in the first days of December, and I kind of imposed myself onto the writing team when I said I could do some music. I remember that my first track was
I'm pretty sure it was the waltz, the Kotonoha waltz.
Yeah, okay. What matters is I did the Kotonoha waltz. It's like, we need more. And in a window of 15 to 20 days, I made 33 tracks for Acme.
It was absolutely nuts to see the speed at which he was just cranking these bangers out. It was awesome.
I was damn inspired, I can say that.
While we're on the topic of the music then, can we talk about that? Because I feel like that's something, especially like in these mods, that don't get enough appreciation, is like the music side of things. Like, because honestly, like a lot of the tracks and a lot of the music is phenomenal, and they really do make the scenes. So like, what were your inspirations when it came to like creating like the waltz, like the whole like soundtrack?
I have a degree in jazz. When I started studying college, I really got inspired and started writing even at my free time, composing. And I kind of like generated a workout, a composition workout. But there was something missing because all of my compositions remained the same. They all sounded the same. When I found myself working with Word, say that I found the last step that I was missing, which is having something to say, having a scene in front of me. It helps me to visualize everything and a lot easier to connect with the music. Given that we're in a visual novel, I cannot go and start using weird styles.
Yeah.
Try to keep myself on what I know. My biggest favorite, which is smooth jazz. The horror tracks were the most challenging for me because I had never done such a thing before. But so far I think I am quite happy with the results. I also realized that there had to be specific songs for characters, specific songs for scenes, because they help to make them, individualize them. For me, that is very important in any film, in any movie. The biggest contribution I think that I have given to World of Dreams is this vision. And well, for as long as Morby and Meiji think it's useful, I will continue.
I mean, you do great work, so I hope they keep you around for as long as possible.
Sorry, Capri, this is, you're fired.
Damn it.
I'm going out of the call right now. Bye.
No, we love you, Capri. Your work is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Definitely.
You use virtual instruments, or did you actually like go into your small little studio and actually like record with all the instruments in real life?
For Act 1 and Act 2, most of the tracks use virtual instruments, except for those that involve the player. For example, track I used for when Meiji and the player talk in their mind. The contrabass is a virtual instrument, and I use them to represent Meiji, while the nylon guitar is real and the electric bass is real, and I use them to represent the player. And so I can make them interact as if they were having a conversation. That's why the song is called Introspection for Two.
That's so cool. Wow, that's awesome. That's so meta, and that's something that not everyone is gonna like get. Cause yeah, like you could have never said that to anyone, and nobody would have ever got that. But that's so cool.
Yeah, it's actually the magic behind it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Morbius, you had mentioned that this was your first like DDLC kind of like project, right?
Yeah, my first ever ever mod.
Like, how long did it take to really like get used to like using like the coding program and like trying to add in the assets?
I can't remember, maybe a month or so. I mean, once I got used to everything, it looked hard on the surface, obviously. You get all these little certain commands for stuff and like, oh gosh, this looks so hard. But after maybe it's been a while since I started, but after maybe about a month, I'm like, okay, I get it. This is how it works. And I would go and talk with people on modding server. Even got a couple of people on there to help me with a few coding things that I didn't know how to do. After a while, I got used to it. I'm like, okay, so I can kind of visualize it in my head where these people are going to go if I put this command. It didn't take me as long as I thought it would. I thought it would take me a while to learn it, but it seemed like it didn't take as long. I still don't know as much as our new coding team does, which is fine with me. After Act 1 and doing a lot of the coding for the Christmas special, I got burned out on coding so fast.
So you want it out as soon as possible.
I just want to focus on the writing. That's what I know I am decent at. I wrote pretty much the entirety of Act 1's story. I wrote the Act 2 story, most of it, and Act 3 is what I'm focusing on now.
What about you, mate? Like, as far as like your experience goes, because you were just add-on, you saw this and you were like, oh, sure, I'll do this. Is this also your first project, or did you jump in knowing exactly what to do?
In the past, I've never really worked on DDLC mods. I love the game, had a really big impact on me, and I liked the different story elements, and COVID happened, and I was like, I'm gonna play DDLC mods because I wanted to revisit them. And then when I stumbled upon World of Dreams, I played the 6-hour demo, which is super long for a demo, and I was like, this is absolutely amazing. And then I joined the Discord, and my experience that I have in emotional situations is not from different writing projects. It's from personal experience in my life, hardships and trials and tribulations in high school and emotional situations. I wanted to provide that to WAD to make some of the emotional scenes more realistic. So like if you'd played the demo of Act 1 and saw Monica's reaction to playing DDLC, and then in the final release of Act 1, how she reacted to it, I applied the experience I had to someone going through something like that. Yes, I definitely have a friend that has played an existential video game. No, that's not what I mean. Just someone reacting to an extreme emotional input and how they would react to that. That is what I wanted to bring to the table. And then I just kind of started helping, and then suddenly Morby was like, yeah, you're on the team. And then it just kind of kept growing and growing from there. I've always been a very creative person, made anything, but WAD was the perfect opportunity to like continue that, because I just want to make people happy. I want to bring them joy, and if I can bring them joy through writing, through art, then that's something I definitely am entirely invested in.
That's kind of ironic, because a lot of the stuff that you do right are those very impactful and emotional moments. So it's not really making us happy, it's making us like grovel on the ground and be like, why?
It is irony. It's great because, yeah, those are the really hard and emotional and impactful scenes, but at the same time, those are the scenes that a lot of people like remember, and they're like, oh, I really like this mod, I want to go back to it. Like the world building, everything's great, and the emotion's great. It just adds to the greater whole.
That's honestly what really drew me into the mod, because I played the demo, I enjoyed it. I feel like it was one of the mods that actually did this whole premise right. We'll get into that later. There is such a beautiful groundedness to everything that it feels so real, and it so easily draws you in, and not just because like of the whole aspect of the idea, but just simply how these characters just talk to each other, just interact and just exist in this world of dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the joke that I go by Meiji, because Morby is the main guy pulling all the shots, and then I'm the one whispering in his ear, helping to get through situations and such. So that's why it just works out kind of funny.
What was it like working as like a team when you first like joined? Did it ever get like any easier, or was it kind of just like a little of like mishaps here and there?
In the beginning, it was really easy. We have a bigger team now, and there are some hiccups sometimes, but on the whole, it's been pretty good, I would say. They know when to get serious when it's time to get serious. At least some of the younger ones do.
Act 1, it was just me, Capri, and Morby. It was just us working on it. We'd ask artists for sprites, and then we'd ask artists for backgrounds, and then we'd get it, and then we'd work on it. And it was just us three. But as the team grew, especially when we started working on Act 2, we made it a development team server, and then started adding more people. We got a bunch of other members that also took over moderation of the main server, so we could just dedicate all our time to the mod. And then Act 2 was a long development, as people know. We were still kind of in how we developed Act 1, just funneling everything to Morby, and then we had to shift into a team atmosphere. And what I will say is that the programmers and Neko have been very good at setting up a back end of the GitHub and all of that so that we can all access the code. Yeah, there have been hiccups, as Morby said. There's been times where there have been like, hey, can we just focus, please? But never like really bad things.
The toughest thing to handle, to monitor, at least during this work, during the team's work, is the time zones. For example, I live in Italy. I have more or less like a 9-hour difference with you guys. Some of our developers are from Russia. There are some guys who live in different parts of America. Of our artists is from Hungary. So we're really spread. So what joins us mostly are the mod and Discord. And I think that even with that, the work has been flowing really nicely, at least from my point of view.
You really took the world aspect of World of Dreams, huh? You have people from all over the place, all over the world, just helping out.
Yeah, and there were only a few times that we like directly asked artists. It's mainly like when we asked artists for work, but mainly the team. We did have like a couple coder interview sessions and found some people, but mainly the team just kind of came to us. That's a really cool aspect, because then that means that the people that come to us are also very passionate, very driven. They don't treat it like a job where they clock in, clock out. They're like, they're present, they're there, and they're committed, and it's a very nice team to work with.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds awesome. You mentioned before that like you kind of had some little hiccups here and there because you were working on Act 2, like you were working on Act 1. What was that shift like when you started working on Act 2? Did you kind of already have an idea on how you were going to do it and it kind of backfired? Did it really take you like a little bit to just slowly integrate yourself and make something?
Act 1, it was funneling everything to Morby because we didn't have a GitHub, we didn't have anything. He was the one that was making it, programming it, and all of that. But as we started expanding, we kind of fell into that, oh, we just going to funnel it to Morby and we're just kind of here. And then like development was really slow. We cycled through a bunch of programmers. We had most of the assets, but like story was being written just by Morby. It was kind of an interesting pipeline how we did it back then, but it wasn't working as much now. But the real big shift is when we got the newest coding team, at least how I saw it. We got the new coding team. They started actually prioritizing coding side of things, because that's where a majority of like technical time goes into, because the writing time is like when Morby wants like write, is inspired, but it's the real like technical building of the actual mod that takes a very long time. But once we got the new team and then started working on it, we shifted into a team aspect where we all were working on our individual things that then came together rather than kind of like a development pyramid.
That sounds about right. I can go with that. Sometimes for me, it still feels like we're still kind of transitioning, but for the most part, we're pretty much getting there. I've watched conversations on our dev server, and they talk about coding stuff, and I get people pinging me sometimes saying, hey, what if we did this for the coding? I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. We could do that. Maybe not, I don't know. Stuff like that. But they're giving me ideas now, which is kind of nice. Stuff that I won't be able to think about because, like I said, I'm not a coder. I know the bare minimum of how to code a DDLC mod.
That's interesting. Are they the ones that came up with the whole Act 2 look for the UI, like the Windows like old like interface?
Oh no, it was me, and I can't remember who came up with the idea actually. I thought it was me.
I think it was like the three of us. I proposed the idea like, what if we made it look like Windows 98? And then you were like, hell yeah, and then started going through all the different processes. We came up with concept art, we leaned into it, and then it was one of our other programmers, Lame Man, that actually came up physical assets that were used in the mod. Quote unquote, the world had reset, and it was like in safe mode now. So it had to look kind of shitty, because that's how Windows 98 has looked in the past. That was also the kind of the idea behind it. But it was the team idea, and mainly Morby as well.
How long did it take to get all the menus and UIs right? Or was it just like, here's all the references, we easily just like worked as a team and we made it?
From the idea to when it actually got made was a long gap because we were in between coders and stuff. But when we gave the idea to the programmers and then they made it, it was like a 2-3 weeks maybe. And then there was like tweaks and size changes and stuff like that. But that was mainly it, yeah.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Let's talk about the specials, because there's something I actually wanted to talk about. First, why did you all decide to return and do these side content? You know, what made you want to come back and do both a Thanksgiving special and a Christmas special? Because I remember seeing a lot of people complain about the Thanksgiving special, saying that it was a huge waste of time and it was just like a not very good product. So, what is your opinion on that? Like, what happened?
The Thanksgiving special, I actually wrote all that on that Thanksgiving day. I was like, I'm gonna just do it. And just for the heck of it, was done maybe after Thanksgiving dinner, tested it, then uploaded it, and like, here's a random 15-minute special, that's not even canon, it's just for funsies.
Yeah, that was also during the time when we were transitioning programmers. I believe at that time, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the story for Act 2 was already written. The Thanksgiving special, at least how I saw it, kind of like reinvigorated us and started to work on the mod again. And it was just a fun kind of like side project to work on.
And what about the Christmas special? What made you want to return for that one?
That actually was that was not something I wrote as much of. That was actually one of our other team members who was like who's more part-time than anything else. We called him Mono because I think his nickname was it Mono something or other. I don't remember.
His username is Mononucleosis, I think.
That's what it is, yeah. But he was the one who focused on that. I was not as involved in the writing of that. I did some of the coding for it when we were trying to get it out before the end of that year. We were hoping for a Christmas Day or a Christmas Eve release, but we pushed it back to the December 31st release. So I did a lot of the coding for it, and I think that was before a lot of other coders had joined, so that's why I did that. We just wanted to give something to everyone between acts.
I believe Morby proposed the idea, and then Mono, and then the people that worked with him, I believe it was Sosa and Rebel, one of our old head moderators from the public server. Mono specifically was like, hey, can we work on that? And we're like, sure, why not? They basically be like, is this how this character would react? And Morby would be like, yeah, that sounds right. And then as we were working on Act 2 stuff and, developing that, they'd pop in and be like, hey, is this how this would work story-wise? And then, Morby did programming for it. It was definitely not we're stopping Act 2 and working on Christmas special. It was like, you guys can go do that if you'd like.
That's what a lot of people were complaining about, was the fact that you wasted time. Because not Act 2, the Christmas special was specifically not only just a spin-off, but also a teaser at the end, like a whole, and also like giving us a lot of lore on like how this world could possibly work. Obviously no spoilers, but like it was like, production value was just like so high, and it definitely was like a great like return to be like, look what we have in store for Act 2. A lot of us definitely felt like, why are you focusing on this when you could have been releasing Act 2?
Actually, I think that the biggest contribution we as a team gave to the Christmas special was making it canon.
Yeah,
well, that's great.
In a sense, yeah. I've said this before on the server many times. People have asked me about, will you make this as it was just a dream ending? I'm like, no, I am not gonna do it's a dream ending for this thing. But for the Christmas special, I bent the rules a little bit.
The Christmas special was a dream that the MC had between Act 1 and Act 2.
Ah, so that's canon. Dang it. And here I thought it would be like more memories people would unlock and be like, oh my god, that did happen.
If you remember, the dates were still in October of 2017.
But it was just a theory. Oh no.
Game theory.
It was initially not going to be canon, and then it was received really well. And then Morby had it be a dream that the MC had between the two acts.
Those first shots of the player's house, that was your house, Morbius, huh?
In the demo, it was mine. Oh, what is it? In the actual release, it's Meiji's house.
Yes,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
This was basically one of the first things I contributed content-wise that wasn't story-wise. I got a Nikon D500 for a photography class for my graphic design major. Those pictures at the beginning could be better. And then I took a nice picture of my house, of course, made it less ambiguous that it's my house. TV inside was the TV at my sister's apartment. So to have like a much nicer kind of image that was still grounded in reality as it being a real picture.
What was the thought process for writing the MC? I definitely saw some people saying like, oh, the MC is self-insert, but clearly that's far from the case. Yeah, what was your thought process?
He's obviously not me. I'm a lot older than he is. It would have been weird if I made him my actual age at the time. It was 2019 when I started, so I was in my late 20s by then. I'm in my early 30s now. I wanted to make him 20. 2 years apart from everyone else, which is not too big of a difference. When I write stories from the first person, which is how the fanfiction started, I do tend to put a lot of myself into that character, and that is kind of true for this guy, but I also didn't want to do it as much as the others, so I wanted him to try and be his own character, and I hope I did that all right. I mean, there are things that the character would do that I certainly wouldn't.
He's definitely morphed and become a lot more a complicated character with like emotional intelligence, understanding like how characters are feeling, but then also still having that kind of very blunt, very aggravated side that has anger problem.
Mostly, I think the most interesting thing that we have taken into consideration when writing the MC is the self-reflection. Because yes, we have a character who has a certain degree of emotional intelligence, we have a character who has definite anger issue, but also we have a character that thinks a lot. Most MCs that you see around, not only in DDLC modes, but also in other games, tend to be the stereotypical hero character.
Yeah, who's got everything figured out and can always find the right answers no matter what. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that avoiding this and making of the MC a more realistic character is, in my opinion, one of the things that made me stick a lot more with the story of World of Dreams. And
I didn't want him to be the perfect guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was far from that, especially in Act 2.
Because he's kind of an ass at times.
Some points, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he's even more of an ass in Act 2, especially with some of the Yai scenes.
Yeah,
which is where Meiji came in and toned it down. Like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I made him too much of a dick.
Yeah, because we were still kind of in the mindset of like how he treated Yai in Act 1, but with all the revelations and everything, it really needed to change. Because like if we're going to have a character that's emotionally intelligent, he can't still be an ass. I basically spent a month going through the whole act and just redoing and fine-tuning how Yai was treated as a character. With Yai, and specifically the situation she goes through, I needed to run it past people that have experiences like that. I have kind of similar experience with that, and I applied that to it. I wanted it to be as real as possible, not insulting, not incorrect. Because of that nature, it needed to be very sensitive. And there was still a little bit of backlash in DDMC, but once that was like clarified, and like, yes, we did put a lot of effort and time to making sure it was realistic and talked about in a very mature and honest way, a lot of people were like, okay, yeah, it's a very touchy subject, but that was the potential that we all saw in Yai as a character rather than just a write-off.
Most of the backlash from DDMC mostly comes because we decided to tackle things in a more realistic way, to try and make the player empathize with the situation. I think that was our hardest effort. If we achieved it or not, that can be said for later, but I think that our greatest effort was to humanize and to make the people empathize with each of the characters' problems, and to make the characters not be fully side characters.
That was another thing that drew me initially, was having side characters that weren't just like kind of there, that they were like integrated fully into the story, because that was something Morbi did really well with like Kozue and Mori and Kotonoha in Act 1, but I absolutely loved about it. Because a lot of mods are how to make them have a happy ending and stuff like that, but since we wanted to lean into like, because Act 2 in base DDLC was like very screwed up, and we wanted to lean into that, and that's where some people had some backlash to it, because we tried to stay with that initial like psychological horror that was part of the initial game.
I was very happy that you did these moments, because yeah, like a lot of the mods, as you said, were like trying to save these girls or like trying to do the right thing. Of course there's other mods that like are darker, but like this one just, it felt refreshing for the sake of the fact that yeah, these characters were very humanized. That was one of my favorite moments, was Yai and the main character, because it just, the whole development and the whole just like, yeah, groundedness and like the way they talked back and forth and the little character arcs that we had, it was just so beautiful. It was so just like, it made me cry on stream. It was great. I loved it so much, and it was so surprising just how much these side characters just got so much love, because you wouldn't expect it at all.
Fun fact, I'm assuming you're talking about when Yai cracks in front of MC's house on the way to school, right?
Yeah.
So fun fact, that scene didn't exist until I started my rewrites.
No way.
Yeah, initially Yai was just like, I know when I'm a mean bitch or whatever she said initially, and then the character's like, oh, okay, then they walk to school. But then as I was writing, it's like, nah, something needs to change here. I had that be the moment when the MC was like, went from being mean to actually understanding her as a person, because she's one of the only characters that has had horrible torment both in Act 2 and Act 1. Whereas like Kotonoha was like fine, but then it was different in Act 2. Mori was fine, but then it was different in Act 2. Whereas Yai, it was horrible in both times. That's what he realized. When I was writing it to redo it, I was crying as well. I was like, holy shit.
It's a lot, but it's great.
And then of course, because we're mean, we had someone watch it, and then rumors and all of that.
The new characters, Yai, Mori, Kotonoha. You said it's Kozue. I've always said Kozue. It's Kozue?
Kozue.
I've been saying it wrong this whole time. I apologize. But yeah, let's talk about them.
That's alright.
Let's talk about them. Why?
Why add them to the story?
Just why they exist, you know? Like, yeah, like what was the idea? Like, did they come early in development, or just walk me through? Like,
they were in the fanfic, I believe. I wanted to include them to show this world is a lot bigger than it seems. There aren't going to be 4 main people on the screen.
Not going too far into too many spoilers, it's to show that the world, because it's not like the world is focused on the Dokis, like if you know the lore of like DDLC Plus, where there's like the virtual machines and all of that, exclusively on Monika Sayori, Yuri Natsuki. This one is like, yeah, they're just part of this world. Everyone is complicated. They're not here to just support the main cast.
Speaking of complicated, let's talk about Meiji. Let's talk about Meiji. I love Meiji so much, but I can't deny that as far as Act 2 goes, what was the plan for him? Was he always supposed to just be a bystander? What exactly was the point of Meiji?
Well, may I ask you this? What did the MC do in base DDLC? Fucking nothing.
That's fair. You know, that's fair. That's fair.
At least from my perspective, he was meant to not want to do anything. That's why he was lethargic. That's why he was like narcoleptic. Like, he's meant to be sleeping on this because the world is meant to be like going to shit. And like in the base game, he literally just stands there and watches Yuri stab herself and bleed on the floor without saying a single word. That is the energy of why Meiji was so like less interactive in Act 2. But he actually spoke up more when he was in the space classroom because he was outside.
And not only that, I think one of the main points that we wanted to pass across the players was try and give a realistic explanation of Act 2's bugs. All of Act 2's glitches and bugging and stuff. We wanted to try to take them and give them a realistic way of happening.
Let's not forget that Meiji was also suffering from a cold. That wasn't as touched upon, but it still affected him.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just any cold would affect anyone.
All the little details that like people's like, why did we never talk about his narcolepsy? Why did we never talk about his cold? It's like those were there to intentionally suppress his character so that he would want to do less to help people. But then the players there mucking everything up.
Yeah.
Like, if you're willing to like hear me out, because I'm still kind of like super pogged out about this idea that I had when I was making my 2.5 hour long rant video about World of Dreams Act 2. Something that I really wanted from Meiji was just to like him to stop being a bystander, because he's going through everything that the player is going through, and it kind of just sucks the fact that like he doesn't really get that much focus. And understandably so, like that's something I had to like really understand. It's like, okay, it's just like the game, it's fine. He's just, you know, of course he's out of it all the time. If you're willing to hear me out and critique my idea. But when the player breaks down in the nurse's office after everything that went on with Fury and Natsuki's dad, and Mori kind of like helps put the pieces back together and calm him down a little bit. In that moment, I really wish Meiji was there to kind of talk to him, or maybe even later, I really wanted Meiji just to be like, hey, we're gonna get through this together. And it would have been so powerful, because in the beginning of the story, Meiji was kind of like not super scared, but like very worried about Act 2. So in that moment, I would have loved for him just to be like, just have Meiji be stronger and feel like he actually had like a bigger resolve to do the right thing, and feel like he's no longer just a bystander, but feel like he actually wanted to try and right his wrongs. Because in the beginning of the story, he was just there like, oh, I'm a weeb. and for him to go from weeb to like want to be hero, like that would have been so cool to have that little development in the background, if that makes sense.
But yeah, I get it, but that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, these characters have been in this for about what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks barely, yeah, I know.
Subjective time. That doesn't, becoming a hero doesn't exactly happen overnight. Parts of a story, the call of the hero. I mean, I don't know if he's actually felt that as much yet. And besides the fact that he's always been, at least in my view, he's always been just average. Average people don't, in stories, of course, average people get called to be the hero, but in real life, do they get called to be the hero? No, it's someone who's, on the surface at least, got it all figured out. Perhaps in the future, he may start to become a little more proactive. Just depends on what we go with him. But I don't want to make him kind of a blah side character. I mean, he's part of the story. I want to start to include him more, and that might start happening.
If anything, think of it this way from a theory point of view. What if instead of him rising up to the challenge now, he can then reflect back on Act 2 and go, fuck, I didn't do anything.
There is another thing that is also important. One of the main things that involves a plot related to a call to the hero is the recognition and the struggle of your own problems. If you don't even know you have a problem, you cannot rise up to overcome it. Weak is not enough to process it.
Yeah, absolutely not. That's something that's very easy to forget, is the fact that this is barely 2 weeks weeks, but so much stuff happens, which is why I was kind of like, it'd be great if in the background he'd be more willing to do something. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, think of it realistically, because this whole mod is very realistic. Go figure, of course, he'd still just be processing everything. And yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, at the same time, it comes from love, because it's like, I want Meiji to do things. He's great. He's great.
And that is another reason why we had, at least I wanted to have Yai snap so hard, because that wasn't just 2 weeks for her. It's been her whole life. And she finally met someone in these past 2 weeks that would finally be able to possibly maybe understand her, and it just snapped her wide open because no one has ever tried. That's why hers was so like impactful. It's not like, oh, I've met you over this 1 week, I'm now trusting you because why not? It's because he finally showed her something she hasn't had in her entire lifetime.
Speaking of stuff that hasn't happened in an entire lifetime, let's talk a bit about Monika. So
she's a little dehydrated while we're crying.
Yeah, right? She's thirsty.
One of my biggest complaints was that when it came to introducing some stuff like the romance aspect with Monika and the player, first of all, as I said multiple times, it's beautifully written. I love those moments with a passion. But of course, those moments last for such a small amount of time. As soon as they happen, it was over and we were continuing the story. Did you all have trouble trying to write these scenes in? Or is it just because like there was so much going on that like you truly just like we had to like minimize it to an aspect? Or was there more of like a story reason aspect to it where we're holding back a little bit more? Please enlighten like me and everyone.
Well, for me, it was more of a combination of the last two things you said. Yes, the romance, I wanted it in there, but at the same time, you've got Monika and the player, who we actually colloquially all called Josiah, so I'm going to call him that from now on. At the back of their heads, they know we cannot focus on this right now. There's way too much at stake. We have little time to focus on it. As much as we want to, as much as our little teenage hormones are driving us to want to focus on this, we can't let our emotions drive us in that specific direction until everything has been kind of, sorted out. That's how I saw it.
Especially with Act 2, and with Act 2 being like the crisis stage of the original DDLC game, there is like no time because there's people's lives at the line. In the back of Josiah's mind, he knows, and also Monika knows now, that if they don't do something, Sayori would have died, and Yuri was going to die. So like that was just always nagging at the back of their mind, and like being able to be like, oh yeah, she's gonna die, but then still spending time on romance, like the fact that they did at all is like miraculous, that they had those little islands of peace for the short minutes that they did.
On my behalf, what I can say is that we need to remember what happened with Monika during Act 2. On the original Act 2, on the DDLC Act 2, whenever Monika had a little amount of time alone with the MC, the game interrupted her and cut things away and started bugging and returned to the story in which you could choose between Natsuki and Yuri. Monika was never meant to have intimate moments, close moments with the MC, making the world interrupt every single happy moment that the MC, that Josiah and Monika could ever have together was spot on because it was faithful to the game.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. Huh. You're right. You're completely right. Wow.
She was always cut off.
I was here ready to be like, well, in my opinion. It's like, wow, that's insane. Wow. That's crazy. I'm glad you told me that. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. This amount of concepts and like lore background and reasoning is what like 90% of all of our brainstorming is. It's like, okay, if we want to do this, how and why would it be perfectly integrated into the world? Why would Monika not have a huge amount of time? Well, because of X, Y, and Z.
There must be like a huge struggle of like a fine line and difference, because obviously I'm not going to be around the bush. In the aspect of like when it came to like the romance, it did suffer a little bit, but you were being faithful to the game and being faithful to the story. As far as like, with poetry, it rhymes, it didn't really like hit the landing as much as we all wanted to, because it didn't really last as long as we wanted to. What is your opinion on that? Do you think there is that fine line, or you're truly just like, this will be payoff in the end, we are doing everything the best way we can and it is going the best way we can?
For now, given that we are just in Act 2, we need to leave a lot open, especially given that we are planning to make World of Dreams as a story and not as a series of stories.
It's a visual novel, not a visual show. Yes, we can have the ability to have visual aspects through all the coding and all of the visually being there, but at the end of the day, it is a written story. If we were to just blow all of the things out in the front, then if we wanted to develop those characters more, have those romantic scenes in, say, like Act 3 or however long we want to go on, it wouldn't have as much impact because it already happened.
Timing has to be right for it.
We all want it. I say we, but me. These moments to just linger for just a little bit longer and really just enjoy these quiet moments while we had them, because it's just Act 2 is meant to make you feel claustrophobic and meant to make you feel like everything is being pushed out of you. Who is it gonna break first? Please, let me have a break.
That's another reason why we focused on like the breakfasts in the morning and when they got ready, because that's the calm before the storm. That's the only place and the only time they were able to like breathe.
Let's get into another kind of hard-hitting question. So Kotanoa in Act 2, a lot of opinions about that. So Kotanoa was kind of the one kind of focus. I'm not sure if it was only for the sake of world building, but like, you know, everyone mentions Kotanoa and how she's in charge and super dangerous, and everyone's always being like, here's a warning. Then at the end of the day, everyone listened, and we just never really interacted with her, and she was never really the presence that everyone portrayed her as. Was more stuff planned that you had to cut out, or was Kotanoa just wasn't supposed to be as important as we thought? Was she meant to be a red herring?
All I will say on that is yet.
Okay, what I can say is our idea for Act 2 with Kotonoha was to show what could happen in a world without Sayori.
Because Kotonoha's character is like the daughter of a super rich company that's well known, the Chiba Corporation. The implications of that, the alleged Yakuza ties and all of that, has impact on the rest of the world. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, alright then, we'll move on then. Alright, so Natsuki's dad. What the heck?
Same kind of thing, really.
Because that's another thing that was like, it felt like it came out of nowhere. Well, not necessarily came out of nowhere, but like, it was definitely built up, but it was something that's just kind of like, whoa, here it is, and then like, oh, it's gone. Crazy. Why did that happen all of a sudden? Was it just meant for shock value?
That's part of it, but it's also the moment when Natsuki's dad came in was the moment when they were trying to kind of reconcile with Yuri. So in a way, in some ways, you know how in Act 2 Monica is kind of getting sidelined? In Act 2 of World Dreams, it's something similar is happening with Yuri. Like anytime they try and make some kind of outreach towards her, something interrupts them.
So Kozue in Act 2 was our first plot hook. I guess you could say first call to action of like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Was Kozue meant to be more of an importance, or were they just like, because I always found it odd that like Kozue was that first plot hook, but then all of a sudden they kind of were reduced to nothing and didn't get to do anything. Like she was just kind of like, yeah, I remember everything, and then we didn't learn anything from it. So is that something that's gonna be expanded upon later, or do you just not have enough time, or?
All I'm going to say on that is you'll see, I think. We do have plans for each character. Yeah, there it is. The little thing we say when we know something, we'll always get the fans of the game all like, you are so evil, you know things we don't know. Of course we do.
Yeah, of course, of course.
But yeah, we do have
also like, you gotta tell me, this is an interview.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No!
That's exactly the point. No, we don't have to tell you, but we do have plans for each character.
Sweet, okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Yuri. Oh boy, Yuri. What happened to Yuri? Because in my opinion, I think she was the most massive fuck up that ever happened in this mod. More so specifically with the way that she was handled towards the ending, because that definitely ruined her entire character in my opinion. So, what happened?
My idea was to present Yuri as an emotionally unstable character who actually shelters herself, seeks refuge for her insecurities in an intellectual personality. So, the portrayal, apparently intelligent person who has difficulties handling their own emotions is something that is a lot more common than what my people think. It's a person who likes to read, as a person who is very intelligent, as a person who is really book smart, who has really good grades at school, or who is quite diligent and smart at work. Most of the time you will end up seeing a person that hides his life in the work, or hides his life in the studies, or hides his life behind a personality that wants to be more interesting than what they think they are. But I wanted to tap into my own experiences of how does it feel to have to juggle constant pressure coming from different directions at the same time.
Kind of backpacking off of that, this mod has a few characters who all kind of suffer from what's commonly known as imposter syndrome. Yuri is definitely one of them. I mean, she's only 18. She does portray herself as being intelligent. There's no doubt in my mind that she's smart, but she's not as wise as she would like to be, I think. I'm not trying to downplay her, because she has her own struggles. She does hide behind her books and her intelligence, but on the inside, she is a scared little child who's already lost her father. There's that fear of loss in there. And someone like that will definitely cling to things that make them comfortable.
That most people seem to forget is that Yuri is emotionally underdeveloped and she lacks much empathy.
If you think of someone who is so grounded in intellectual logic, deriving their entire personality and every decision they make off of logic, which Yuri definitely does, but then give them no emotional intelligence, no understanding of how their emotions work, and also pressing on such emotional strife with of her mom inevitably dying, her emotions being unstable, and then also add on to that a world that is going into her mind, screwing it up and making her even more emotionally unstable, making her feel things she doesn't want to feel. That mental psyche is going to snap at some point. And that turning moment was when her mom died. Anyone can be an entirely different person when pushed too far. Or that's just who they are and they're wearing a mask. Yuri's mask could be intelligence, calm, collected, enjoying books, where in actuality, when she takes that mask off, she could be a vindictive person. No one knows. And in Act 2, base game, we see a little bit of that. And our mantra in Act 2 of WoD is that it's worse than they expected.
And you don't need an artificial world to do that. Society does that to many people in a daily basis.
So in essence, when you say Yuri was a character assassination, yeah, it actually kind of was. Everyone had their own built-up idea of like, oh, this bookworm Yuri and all of that, but we intentionally wanted to break that pretense down and show someone who was rawly in their emotions and in a fight-or-flight emotional reaction to its deepest core. Because that's exactly what it was, especially like when she got into the space classroom, it's like, why did you not tell me? Because she's so emotional. Like, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. But then there's also the logic of everyone in that room knowing if we told you, it would have been so much worse. Like, it's a double-edged sword. There is no winning.
Yeah, especially in that world.
Actually, we've been trying to deconstruct every single character. At least the 4 main dockies, we have been trying to deconstruct them. Because, once again, we strive for development all of our characters, including the main character.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then there's also the story reason of, now that this all happened with Yuri, there's a rift that needs to be repaired among the friend group.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another thing that needs to be talked on. And it's like, if she was all like, oh yeah, this is so cool, that's one less thing we have to deal with in the next act.
Yeah, the more you all talk about this, the more I just like, my mind just like goes giga brain, because it's like, yeah, like we never, like, I'm not to say anything bad about the writing, but like, yeah, it's clear that Act 2 was about this, and it just kind of like, oh, that's interesting now that we know all this, because this is what we're going to look forward to in the future, because obviously I had no idea that this is what the goal was for Yuri. I had no idea that this was all planned out. I had no idea that this was what the point of it was, because as an audience, as a fan, as a viewer, we don't get that time with her. And that's all, personally for me, that's all I ever wanted with Yuri, was just to see that side of her, and for her to slowly crumble and break apart before our very eyes as we try to reach for her hand. That was something I wanted and kind of demanded for, and that I was hoping for when I finished the mod, was the fact that it always felt like we were so close, but so far, and we could do literally nothing as she just continues to break. And I wanted to see more of that. I wanted to just see, instead of just being like, we have to worry about Yuri. Oh no, Yuri's breaking. Oh no, Yuri's kidnapped me, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I got it, yeah. And
we're not
we're
perfect.
not gonna... Yeah, we're not perfect writers.
You're very close to it, though.
Well, we try. We, like I said earlier, we have plans for each and every character.
That's
so
great. That's great.
Look forward to that.
Absolutely, yeah. Now that you've enlightened my brain, I am definitely looking forward to Yuri's whole thing. Because yeah, that's something I visibly got way more mad about than I should have, was the ending of the mod. The fact that nobody challenged Yuri. Natsuki was the only one being like, hey, Yuri, chill. And she's like, don't tell me what to do, you fucking brat. And it's like, whoa, whoa. Like, understandably so. She was just told everything in this very last moment and was the last one to find out. So I could definitely understand that. But what I can't understand is the fact everyone is just letting her be like, okay, so it's Monika's fault. Let's delete Monika. And it's like, I know she's not in the right mind, but the fact that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, said anything other than Natsuki made me so mad, because it's like we just instantly forgot everything that Yuri did. Obviously, we can't pin that on her. It was still her actions.
Think about it this way. Imagine your best friend. You meet a new guy, he's cool, he's chill, he's really trying his best to help all his friends and be kind, but you see it's taxing on him. And then you see your best friend snap and try to kill him, and kill all of you with a gas bomb. And then you tell her the truth because you care about her so much that you want to help her, and you see so much rage and anger on her. You're not going to be like, oh, we'll call her out on her bullshit, because you are terrified of what she will do to you. You are
you're
scared.
Emotionally drained.
Yeah.
Everyone's
You have
still
been
in shock
having
at
a
what just
week
happened
full
too.
of shit. You're
Everyone's
emotionally
shell shocked.
drained.
And
Yeah.
dealing with this is something that they should never have had to go through.
It's fight, flight, or freeze, and they all froze because they saw someone try to kill all of them. Not just him, but literally all of them with a gas grenade. Like, that's not something that you're just like, oh yeah, don't do that, stop. Like, no, you're gonna be frozen and shaking in a corner.
Yeah, that's very true.
And not only that, you had one who fought, which was Natsuki. She tried to fight. You had the people who froze, like Monika, Kozue, and in that moment, in the moment where everyone is the weakest, she comes and tries to kill him. No one in there had any kind of energy or a minimum of consciousness to try and fight back. They couldn't. They simply couldn't. When we're playing the game, players, when we're seeing the game, we're seeing it from the comfort of we are sitting here quietly, we're having a screen in front of us, and you're not inside there suffering all the issues.
Yeah.
That's why the main reason why people didn't tackle on Yuri is because no one could or even knew how.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I do recognize that can come across as like, oh, why didn't no one do anything, bro? Like that.
Yeah.
That's very obvious. And there's a very big difference between intent in writing and received in writing. And that is something definitely was received differently. It's nice to be able to also like tell our perspective on the story as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely needed because, yeah, you definitely opened up my mind and now I feel completely different about that whole ending sequence. And I definitely now look forward to like, oh wow, so we have so much more to explore the next time we see these characters. Because it's not just like, oh, it's over with, because obviously it feels like that way because the whole Act 2 just ended right then and there. Yeah, it feels very nice to know that it's like, don't worry, we've got plans. So thank you very much for that.
Yep.
One last thing before you all go. I would like, if you can, tell a small, funny, short story. Yeah, just a fun story that happened while working on this mod.
One of like the big goofs and jokes that's been going around is Yairaf.
Oh, yeah. I've got hold on, let me find it.
Yeah, basically, Yai has a very long neck, and that's just the style of her character. But we kind of leaned into that along with her character as well. But our artist literally redrew Yai as a giraffe, and then I made the sticker background for it. And then another thing that branched off of that is we wanted, like as an internal joke, was we wanted to make like just a gag mod where it was like I would narrate it and be like, if you see on the savannah, the Yai rafts, they graze in the tall trees, and just stuff like that. That was one of the funniest things we were joking on.
There's also, can't remember if this is us or not, there's the word choice, was it fair enough?
The player's catchphrase.
You always say fair enough.
Yeah.
That's the catchphrase. Yeah, that's kind of funny because like someone goes fair enough and everyone's like, ah! Those are just little inside jokes.
That's a true inside joke. I love that one. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you all so much for everything. This has been a dream come true. They say never meet your heroes, but this was fun. I hope you all had fun, and thank you so much for giving all your commentary, giving all your thoughts through all this, and thank you so much for not spoiling anything. Definitely look forward to the future projects that you all have, the future spin-offs, whatever teasers that you want to release later on. And yeah, I guess with that, we can end this whole interview, and we can hopefully, maybe one day, see you all next time.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much
for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.